Next on the news, a parish in shock as thieves steal a historic and cherished part of a church in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Also,
it brings me joy to know that I got an opportunity to have such a great daughter, and I tried to be the best father that I could be.
Reflection and grief as the funerals begin for the 21 victims from last week's devastating school shooting in Texas. We'll also speak with San Antonio Archbishop Gustavo Garcia-Siller about how the town of Uvalde is coping with the painful loss from the shooting. And Pope Francis announces 21 new cardinals, including one seen as a key ally here in the U.S. Plus,
it's like a Cinderella and the slipper moment.
How a woman was reunited with her roller skates 40 years later. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. A beloved church in the Diocese of Brooklyn targeted. Brazen thieves stole a historic tabernacle, attacked statues, and desecrated the Eucharist. No leads and no arrests yet after that unholy act at St. Augustine Church in Park Slope. Thieves stole the sacred tabernacle and left consecrated Eucharist scattered about the floor. The pastor, Father Frank Tomino, discovered the destruction at the church, which was founded in 1870, on Saturday afternoon. The thieves apparently used some sort of power tool to cut the heavy steel case that enclosed the ornate tabernacle that's made of gold and silver. The heads of two marble angel statues were among the debris on the floor. While police estimate the value of the tabernacle at $2 million, Father Tomino says it was priceless for its historical value. He also said its beauty inspired parishioners for more than 100 years. Father Tomino says the church has exterior and interior security cameras, but the burglars made off with some parts of the recording system. Pastor Tomino said in a statement, "This is devastating, as the tabernacle is the central focus of our church outside of worship, holding the body of Christ, the Eucharist, which is delivered to the sick and homebound." He went on to say, "To know that a burglar entered the most sacred space of our beautiful church and took great pains to cut into a security system is a heinous act of disrespect." Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan also spoke about the theft at the Park Slope Church. He said, "I'm truly saddened by the news of sacrilege of the Most Blessed Sacrament, which took place in one of our churches in the Diocese of Brooklyn. I appreciate the work of the NYPD and their investigation to find those responsible." While the tabernacle from St. Augustine's Church is valued at over $2 million, it also carries a sentimental and historical importance to both the Park Slope community and the church's parish. Back when the church had a different pastor, Net TV visited St. Augustine for City of Churches, a series that focused on telling the history behind each Catholic church in Brooklyn and Queens. Here's what Father Bob Whalen had to say then about the historic treasure.
It's a gold tabernacle by the architect, Alfred Parfit. It was done in 1895. It's solid silver, coated with 18-karat gold. And it has diamonds and other jewels decorating it. All of that metal and jewels, all the jewels, were donated by parishioners.
Really?
The pastor asked to bring jewelry. So you'll see there are a lot of engagement and wedding ring diamonds on the front of that.
Very expensive, I'm guessing.
Yes, very, very. It's probably the most elaborate tabernacle in the country, and it would cost a $500,000 to replace easily.
In the early 20th century, the parish was made up mostly of immigrants whose donations to the church were likely all they had. Want to know more about the history of the tabernacle and St. Augustine's? Just stick with Net TV after tonight's news. The full City of Churches episode will be on at 7:30. And you can help the parish get back its sacred tabernacle. If you know anything about the crime, police are asking you to contact them immediately. All you have to do is pick up the phone and dial the Crime Stoppers hotline at 800-577-TIPS. Again, that's 800-577-8477. Be sure to stay with Currents News and the tablet for the latest developments on the tabernacle theft. We'll have continuing coverage of the unholy act online 24/7. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time a holy object was ripped from a church in the Diocese of Brooklyn. In fact, one parish in Bensonhurst had the same treasure stolen twice. Back in 1973, the FBI retrieved 2 jewel-encrusted golden crowns that were snatched off of a painting at St. Rosalia Regina Pacis Church in Bensonhurst. Those same crowns were stolen and mysteriously returned in 1952. At the time, police speculated that mafia figures who were a part of the parish had arranged for their return. The 2 crowns adorned a canvas painting of the Virgin Mary and Christ Child. The gems were donated by parishioners during and after World War II, when the shrine served as a monument of peace. And from Brooklyn to Manhattan, another act of vandalism. Tonight, Cardinal Timothy Dolan is joining the parish of Our Lady of Sorrows for a special rosary after their church was targeted. The parish on the Lower East Side was the victim of a hate crime on May 17th. Vandals beheaded and smashed statues in the church's grotto. The cardinal will pray the rosary in reparation for the vandalism and in hopes that this act of hate won't happen again. It was an emotional funeral for the man shot and killed on a subway train. The somber ceremony was held at Transfiguration Catholic Church in Williamsburg Tuesday morning. Family and friends gathered to remember Daniel Enriquez, the man who was tragically gunned down by a stranger while riding the Q train on May 22nd. His sister says Enriquez was proud to be both a New Yorker and a Mexican and lived with a strong commitment against violence. The suspect, Andrew Abdullah, is charged with second-degree murder and weapons possession. The Memorial Day weekend came to a violent end in New York City. In the final hours of Monday, 3 people were shot and a man was attacked with a wrench on the subway. Police say a 19-year-old man was shot in Harlem, a 21-year-old man was shot in the knee in the Bronx, and a woman was shot in the arm in Richmond Hill, Queens. And a fight between 2 passengers on the D train ended when one man hit another with a wrench. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says shootings are a national crisis as mayors across the state gear up for Gun Violence Awareness Month in June. Adams says it's time for us to have a united fight against the over-proliferation of guns. The mayor also called for more resources from Washington. While Adams says the city has tough gun laws, he also said there must be crackdowns on ghost guns and out-of-state weapons coming into New York. Also tonight,
It's really sad.
the first funerals.
One more hug, one more kiss, one more goodbye.
A final goodbye to the children of Uvalde, one priest celebrating most of their short lives.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you how many, but I think one every day.
Current News coverage of the Texas school shooting continues. Father Eduardo Morales will celebrate 12 funeral masses over the next 2 weeks. He says it feels like one huge funeral with no end in sight. That's how the days have felt for the entire Uvalde community, and sadly, this is only the beginning. This is how those who love 10-year-old Amory Jo Garza will remember her. A decade of photos showing a happy girl with a sweet smile, described by family as sassy, funny, and a little diva who hated wearing dresses. Memories of happier times as her family, friends, and community say goodbye during visitation and a rosary service.
It brings me joy to know that I got an opportunity to have such a great daughter, and I tried to be the best father that I could be.
Just down the road, another grieving family says goodbye to Maite Rodriguez, also 10 years old.
I love her, that I miss her, that I'm proud of her. She wanted to be a marine biologist before she could even say the word. She loved animals.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you how many, but I think one every day.
Father Eduardo Morales will lead 12 funeral services at Sacred Heart Catholic Church over the next 2 weeks.
It's as if one huge funeral that is not ending. We laugh because we don't want to cry.
And as families bury their children, there are growing questions and outrage about the police response. The Justice Department now says it will review the response, which Texas officials say deviated from active shooter protocols.
Had they gotten there sooner and somebody would have taken immediate action, we might have more of those children here today, including my daughter.
Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez said President Biden told him that Robb Elementary School would be raised and rebuilt as part of a federal grant process for schools where there have been mass shootings.
What kind of world are we living in that legislation was created for raising these schools?
For some parents, those questions come too late.
No matter who is held responsible, it's not going to bring my daughter back. She was the perfect daughter to me.
As the funerals begin, an uncle of one of the shooting victims turning to faith and forgiveness when it comes to the shooter.
The Bible says in Ephesians 4 that we must forgive one another just as God has forgiven you. And I hold no hatred towards him.
Adrian Alonso's son was spared in the shooting, but he lost his niece, Ellie Garcia. He says right now he's focused on his family and helping his son, Ellie's cousin, cope with the painful loss. All last week, San Antonio Archbishop Gustavo Garcia-Siller was in Uvalde consoling the families of the school shooting victims. He'll join us later in the newscast to recount those moments and the measures he wants the country to take to make sure a tragedy like this never happens again. Over now to Capitol Hill. Senators there took up the issue of gun control once again today. The bipartisan group of lawmakers met remotely because the Senate is not in session this week. Texas Senator John Cornyn says they will try to reach a consensus on how to move forward in the wake of the Texas school shooting that left 21 people dead, including 19 students. Supreme Court officials are taking drastic steps in a probe into a leaked draft opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade. In an unprecedented move, they're now asking law clerks to provide phone records and sign affidavits in their search for the source of the leak. Politico published the draft opinion on May 2nd, prompting an outcry among conservative court members poised to roll back abortion rights. The leak also sparked pro-abortion rallies nationwide. The New York State Catholic Conference is speaking out against legislation that could soon be approved in the state Senate. It would create a task force to study pro-life pregnancy centers because they do not provide abortion. The measure would also enable the health commissioner to subpoena pro-life centers to provide data and reports regarding funding, staffing, services, and clientele. So the New York State Catholic Conference is asking you to reach out to your state senator about the proposed legislation, urging them to oppose it. Just go to nyscatholic.org to compose your message. There's a lot more news headed your way. It was a final farewell to Cardinal Angelo Sodano, a look at the life and legacy of the longtime Vatican power broker. And a progressive bishop from San Diego will soon have a new moniker in the Catholic Church. Plus, the summer travel rush has officially kicked off, while airlines are struggling to keep up with the demand.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
Archbishop Gustavo Garcia-Siller of San Antonio has spent the last week consoling the families of the school shooting victims in Uvalde. He's also been speaking out on the issue of gun violence. Archbishop Garcia-Siller joins us now. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
You're welcome, Christine.
So, Archbishop, we mentioned earlier in the newscast that the victims' funerals are beginning today, but I can imagine their families will be in mourning long after today. So, what do you say to the parents of these children? You know, how do you keep the faith after losing a child?
You know, more than the faith issue will be how to love them, how to express care and attention and support in love, because the faith issue for some could be shaken, but many of them, their faith is so strong, but they are missing their child. They are in a very tragic situation. So the question will be, are we answering their needs?
Right, so people need to be there for them months down the road. I know President Biden was there. He attended Mass and met with the families over the weekend. You were there as well. How did the families respond to the president's visit and the community as a whole? I know there was some anger, people saying do something.
Sure. Well, the people in general were very appreciative of the visit of the president and his wife, and particularly the families. But the families are in shock. They are trying to deal with feelings, even in their bodies. You know, they are tired. They are aching. But you know, the president and his wife, they were so good in showing affection, and very genuinely, that they were able even to get smiles and even loud expressions of what we would call engaging in a fun conversation, which, for example, I don't have that gift, but I was able to see them, and they spent quality time because they were 8 hours in Uvalde.
Wow. Now, I know you've been outspoken about gun laws, and you recently said in an interview that pro-life politicians worry about the baby in the womb, but not the 9-year-old child. What did you mean by that?
What I meant is that we need to be consistent in what we believe. And that could be, there are many people who respect life, not just Catholics, people, and should be as extended as possible. But when we make a difference between the baby in the womb, this 9, 10 years old, the young man who is trying to figure out a career but doesn't have the funds, the discrimination of the racism, the elderly, the sick, the uninsured. And of course, each situation takes a different attention. But all is about having the person before us. People first, not the stock market, the finances, the power and prestige, is the people. And that is what is taking our time and what we have in our energy and our talents and gifts with the people in Uvalde, is to walk with them and to go on the rhythm, not in the way we want to be for them, but in the way they need. And we are collaborating. It's an effort of many people.
I'm sure it is. San Antonio Archbishop Gustavo Garcia-Siller, thanks for being here. We're praying for you and everyone in the Uvalde community.
Thank you.
Cardinal Angelo Sodano was laid to rest at the Vatican today. Pope Francis gave the valediction at the conclusion of the Mass for Cardinal Sodano. The Cardinal died last week at the age of 94. Above all, the Cardinal will be remembered for the 15 years he spent as the Vatican Secretary of State from 1991 to 2006. During his tenure, he expanded the Vatican's network of diplomatic relations, extending it to include Russia. Meanwhile, Pope Francis has announced he will create 21 new cardinals. So all of them will be in Rome in August. 16 of the 21 will be electors, meaning they can cast a vote in case of a conclave to choose the Pope's successor. Among the group, San Diego Bishop Robert McElroy, a key ally of Francis in the U.S. Others include prelates from India, Mongolia, and Ghana, countries where Christians are a minority. Bishops here in the U.S. are congratulating San Diego Bishop Robert McElroy. Archbishops Jose Gomez of Los Angeles and Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco said by naming McElroy as a cardinal, Pope Francis has shown his pastoral care for the church in the U.S. McElroy has been Bishop of San Diego since 2015. Father Earl Fernandez has been ordained and installed as the new bishop of the Diocese of Columbus, Ohio.
I want to thank Bishop Brennan. Welcome back to Ohio. I have big shoes to fill. He was here only briefly, but he lifted the morale of both the people and and the clergy.
The Tuesday afternoon Mass was held at St. Paul the Apostle Church in Westerville. Fernandez comes to Columbus with 20 years of experience serving his community through his work as a dean, pastor, and retreat leader. He's also the son of Indian immigrants and the fourth of 5 boys. Bishop Robert Brennan was the previous Bishop of Columbus before leaving to come here to Brooklyn. And for more information on the installation Mass in Columbus, be sure to check the tablet and Currents News. We will have a full report on Wednesday. The Memorial Day weekend proved to be a messy one for many airlines. On Monday alone, carriers canceled thousands of flights worldwide, including hundreds in the U.S. The holiday weekend marked the unofficial start to the summer travel season and was the first major rush without the transportation mask mandate in place. Already, the TSA says it screened about 2.1 million people per day since Wednesday.
The demand has come roaring back, and they are struggling to keep up. That's true whether we're talking about flight attendant crews, whether we're talking about pilots. And so we've got to make sure that we have short-term and long-term approaches.
Delta Airlines canceled the most flights among major U.S. airlines, scratching 133 flights on Monday and more than 400 over the weekend. And already, Delta is proactively canceling flights in July, slashing about 100 flights a day from its schedule. Still to come on Currents News, it's a coincidence too good to be true. The fateful reunion that renewed a Canadian woman's long-lost interest in roller skating. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. A Canadian woman has her own Cinderella moment. While shopping for roller skates, she found out what's old is new again. John Hoffman has the story.
Renee Forstall hadn't laced up a pair of roller skates in more than 40 years. She wanted to try it again as a fun way to exercise, so she bought new skates last month. She practiced for a week, but they didn't fit right. Not like the ones she had when she was young. So she searched online classified sites and quickly found a similar pair in questionable condition.
They said, well, here it is, if you think that's going to fit your foot, you're welcome to try it. And I thought, it's a bit dodge. So I kept kind of scrolling. I thought, but $40, that's a good deal. So I I thought they do look like the ones I used to have.
Forstall says when she first saw them, they were pretty dirty. But once she got her foot in one of the skates, she knew she found a good fit.
It's like a Cinderella and the slipper moment. It was very strange. It was like a perfect fit. I couldn't believe it. And they felt good. It wasn't even like the new ones I had, like they were broken into my foot.
Forstall says she started asking the seller when he got the skates, when things got even stranger.
As he's telling me, I flipped back the tongue, and there's my name. And I was like, what? And I couldn't even believe it. I thought, how? And then I said, this is me. These were mine. When I saw my name, and I kind of, the shock kind of absorbed, and I felt tears welling up in my eyes. And I think because, I'm not even sure. I think because suddenly I was reeled back to my youth. Like 40 years ago, it was like, boom, like life flashed before my eyes.
Watching this all take place was James Bond, the man selling the skates. Bond says the moment filled his heart with joy.
When she saw her name written on the insides, she just started tearing up. And I thought that was so cool. I feel like they could make a Disney movie out of the whole thing.
And since his name is James Bond, it should be a good movie. Again, that was John Hoffman reporting. The seller says he had a gut feeling about Renee, and that's why he sold her the skates. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.